everyone else to get them to stop. Al?
Just, you might explain what off-label means, maybe, off-label.
Well, off-label, the FDA approves drugs for specific uses, and that's called on-label. There's a big long document that they call the label, and they say, and it will say what uses the FDA has approved. And if it's not one of those approved uses, it's off-label. Now, off-label prescribing is very common. But Congress said we're not going to pay for it unless it has scientific support. And this is ignored. I mean, in fact, in the Ninth Circuit case that we had, they essentially ruled against us saying, well, if the government doesn't care, why should we? And there's a specific, one of the provisions is called the public disclosure bar, and so that was what they hung it on. But basically, and it was a non-precedential ruling, but that's basically what they said. Julie?
Yes, with Medicaid, no, they have it separated, no, with some people have this Medicare Part D, is that, which is end of the funding and everything, that these laws also apply to that Medicare Part D.
It does apply to Medicare.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, we were talking about the other end of the age spectrum.
Yes.
But where it's really kind of, I think, ripe for someone to do something, if we could get lawyers, is especially the elderly in nursing homes who are given neuroleptics basically to keep them from complaining or, causing trouble. I mean, maybe there's people are agitated and stuff like that too sometimes. But basically, the neuroleptics carry a black box warning for the elderly, and they double the mortality. Steve?
I just have a quick question. So is the Medicaid say we won't pay for this off-label with children or with anybody?
No, it's everybody. And it's Congress. It's Congress in the statute that says that. By the way, I kind of abandoned the no questions, so feel free. Yeah, Congress has, that's what the statute requires. And CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, totally ignores it. In fact, there was a study, or what is it, a report that talked about Medicare and psychiatric drugging of the elderly. And basically, CMS said that they had no authority to enforce that restriction. And there's no support for it. It's like, where does that come from? That's absurd. Go ahead.
I'm speaking on Monday morning to a bunch of judges at the state hospital with the PAMI, Oregon PAMI group. What does this, the Seventh Circuit thing, you talk about Medicaid, but what kind of, it doesn't seem like Medicaid has much jurisdiction under the state hospital and medication prescription, does it?
I'm not entirely clear about the hospital. I know that they're not really covered under Medicaid. They get some other funding, and the idea was, and there's some effort to try and change that they wanted people not to be, they wanted to encourage people to be let out of the hospitals, and so they did that through Medicaid funding. So this applies to outpatient prescriptions. Cindy?
I just want to add that it's also, in a way, it's not even reinforced when, like the state sues, like the state of Washington sued Janssen because they had advertised to minors for Risperdal, and they won that lawsuit, and they won like $4 million, and there were some other things that was wrong with it. So I called the state because my son fit that perfectly. He was 17 and they overdosed him, and they had $4 million, and the state says, well, I'm sorry, we're not going to give it to any of the victims, we're going to create programs, which never existed. So even when they do sue and win, we still don't get it.
Right, and they're still giving Risperdal to children.
Right.
Right, I mean, it's just like in the Zyprexa,
Okay.
you know, they paid $1.4 billion, and then states got some money out of Eli Lilly for Zyprexa, causing diabetes, and so they got money for all the extra costs for treating the diabetes, and they still force people to take Zyprexa. So, it's, I don't know, I mean, from my perspective, these legal things that the government's doing is kind of just for show.